That's super important for our research and the technologies that we use. That's one aspect of it. Then there's also the cultural aspect, because there are differences in how we show emotions, how we talk about emotions in different cultures and in different languages. What anger is for me, it might be very different for you, both in the word itself, but also how we express it. So we are also working on research on cultural adaptation. How can we actually adapt to each culture?
Okay, on today's show, we have a special guest. She's a leader, innovator, podcaster, and technologist, the co founder and CEO of Interhuman AI on a mission to build social aware AI. She has years of experience in digital health from pharma and digital health innovators. And in her free time, she's building a humanoid robot and has a podcast focused on founders' mental health. Paula, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, we just want to know a little bit about how you started your career and how and why did you choose computer science?
Ooh, fun question. Yeah, so I guess I was inspired by my family as well. Early days of computers, but I had access to a computer at home and at my mother's workplace. So I was just playing, like kids do. And then the internet came and was like, oh my God, access to knowledge and everything. So I was super excited, and I was seeing the power that we get when we get access to information and a tool that we can use to build things and share knowledge. So I guess I started building things myself. Started building a website, playing with PHP, with Flash. Then everything led to, okay, I should be more serious about it. Study computer science, and then I guess from there going to, okay, how can I apply all this knowledge in computer science in different areas, going to becoming a data scientist, and then leading teams, doing more of the architecture and like strategy and technology. And yeah, here I am today leading a team, an AI company, basically, in these exciting times.
Oh, that sounds really amazing, and I think we all started like that. We both like we started. Our father bought a computer, and then I remember to build some websites, with GIFs and stuff. So that was the thing when we were like 8 years old.
Yes. Yes.
But did you specialize in bioinformatics? And I have seen that you're working in a project called Find Zebra. What is it? What is it about?
Yeah, so Find Zebra is a specialized tools for clinicians to find the diagnosis for difficult medical cases. And it started as part of a project I had at the University of Copenhagen when I was doing my master's in computer science, where we were looking at how can we help clinicians and people suffering from rare diseases get their diagnosis, because there was a huge problem, there is still, because these diseases are rare. um, the doctors, the clinicians don't really know about them. They're not faced with them. It's very rare. They might be listening to some podcast or reading some journal that maybe says something about one case, but they're not exposed to it. So access to information to them was very difficult. So what we started doing is creating a customized search engine that has all the relevant information on rare diseases and genetic diagnosis, and providing that information. And it was a collaboration with one of my fellow colleagues, classmates in university, and our supervisor. He was working both in the bioinformatics department and in the computer science department. So, combination of computer science applied to health, that I think really got me interested into, wow, I can apply my technical knowledge in a field where it can help people. And we got amazing results from that. So we published also our search engine results and yeah, relevance and all that, comparing it with Google. At that time there was a lot of talk like, okay, doctors use Google now for diagnosing patients, and also compared it with PubMed. So of course we had better results. It was more focused on a specific vertical, so it worked better for the task. And we got a lot of publicity. We made it open for everyone to use, and that also resulted in not only clinicians using it, but also people that were suffering of rare disease. Like, basically they didn't know what they had. There's a thing, you do, your doctor doesn't know, so they send you to the next doctor, another analysis, and it can take years until you get a diagnosis. And we got messages from people that use the search engine FindZebra. They put in their symptoms, free text like you do in Google, and they got a list of potential diagnoses. They took that list to their doctor and they discussed it. And some of these diseases, they are genetic, so you can test for it actually. And they finally got a diagnosis. And that was a huge relief for them. It was just so amazing. And being part of that was, I think, for me the beginning of, wow, I do want to combine this like tech with health in the future.
Awesome. So, speaking of that, what challenges did you face when transitioning from roles in data science and bioinformatics to leadership positions in health tech startups? How was that transitioning?
Yeah, it's fun because I worked both in the corporate world at Lundbeck, going from individual contributor, data scientist to manager of a team. But then also went and worked as CTO of Brain Plus, a digital therapeutics company, in the C level role together with the rest of the leadership and reporting to the board as well. So that was a fun experience. And I can say that in Lundbeck, the transition was actually quite smooth because I was there for 7 years. I had an amazing manager myself who really saw that I needed to grow. I was so curious and like wanted to take new challenges. So he gave me the opportunity to do that and grow. So when I was offered the opportunity to become manager over some of my colleagues, it felt very natural because in a way I helped hire them and everything. It just made sense. When I transitioned to, okay, now I'm a CTO of the tech team in a scale up, startup slash scale up, 20 people overall in the tech team, only five. It was quite a different experience because you come from the outside with a team that is already formed. It has its own dynamics. And it was really interesting from the human behavior perspective as well, to see like, okay, the dynamics, how can I change things, how can I contribute as a tech person, but also on like taking care of people, because being a manager is like a super rewarding experience. I didn't know that before I tried it, right? But it's like seeing the people that I was part of helping them grow, seeing them flourish and like make amazing presentations, deliver results. It's just like, I feel so proud. And like then I know kind of what my leadership style is, that I'm not like micromanager or something. It's like I just want to believe in people and that people are good, and empower them, help support them, and they will grow. And I did the same when I was at Brain Plus in the leadership position, and we had to make some changes in the team, but also hire new people. And it took a while to change the team dynamics, but it's it was a fun, challenging period to work on that. And now with my current startup, we are four co-founders. I'm in the CEO role, and I've worked with most of the people in my co-founding team for a while now. The longest is 6 years with my CTO, and the shortest is 8 months with my CMO. And one of the findings that I have is that we are very different people, driven by different things. We communicate differently. Um, However, we are very driven. And as the leader of the founding team, you can't just let people go in different directions without proper sync of what are we actually doing. So I can share that we had some challenges at some point, like where are we heading? Like you haven't communicated this or this. It was too fast. It's like then I realized, okay, people have the tendency to think, pharma world, corporates, that's a lot of processes, standards, boring. You have to follow the rules. And on the other side, you have the startups where it's like you do things fast, you don't care about processes and rules and so on. However, what I've learned is that the opposite of processes and standards, it's actually chaos. You have people that are running like in different direction, very powerful people, very motivated, but if they're not going in the right direction, then you're kind of splitting the team. So we had to have a little crisis in our team at some point in order to redirect and say like, okay, we do need to talk about what are we actually doing, each of us, what are our roles, what are our expectations from each other, so going a bit more into roles and responsibilities. We can't just like go in it and things will happen.
Speaking of that, you're talking about the Interhuman AI, which is the company you founded. Would you like to can you give an explanation on what it is, what it does, how many are you? Just a little bit of to for us to understand.
Yeah. So Interhuman AI is an AI based company focused on developing social aware AI. That means that we want to use technology that deepens human understanding, that makes people better understand themselves and each other. And we are both a research and products company. That means that we do a lot of research projects. We are actually a spin out from the Danish Technical University. And we have a scientific officer who's a professor at the DTU. So we're basically commercializing some of her research. But we also run a lot of research projects together with the universities. We have several master students in our team that are working on different aspects of how can we make AI understand human behavior and what are the implications of that. How accurate it is, but how fair are what biases could come in, and how can we make it better. But we also have products, so research and products. And on that side, we have a communication in the workplace support tool, an AI coach that helps people communicate better. And the connection there is that as you communicate with others, you have a perception of how you perform, and there's the perception of how others see you. So we are trying to provide people a safe space with an AI where they can practice their communication, get feedback in that safe space before they go out in the real world and have the conversations. An example could be that, okay, I've had some conflict with a colleague and I'm super angry now in the moment, but I'm not very conscious of it, though the way that I behave and respond to others' interactions might be very different, right? If I then go to a mute box and spend 5 minutes with our AI coach, then it might see that and say like, okay, maybe you should breathe a bit. Let's do a breathing exercise and then consider this from the other person's perspective, and do a bit of that, a bit of thinking and becoming more aware of the things before you go out in the real world. And these things you learn with experience, of course. But we are providing a tool where you can maybe fast track some of that. You get the experience in a safe space with an AI. So that's kind of what we're providing. The product for communication in the workplace, if you or any of the listeners want to give it a try, it's called Relately. So like relately. And you can go to relately.app or search for Relately in the app stores and give it a try. And one of the next products on the line will be more a role play builder, because we've seen people really like to use the role plays that we have created, where you interact with avatars that are expressive, react to your emotions, facial expressions, tone of voice. And we're building a designer for that. So both individuals, small teams, and companies can create their own role plays specific to their industry and the situations that their employees face.
And what about the challenges that you see in a more social aware AI models, like in this, because you have a super interactive uh, AI. Actually, I downloaded the app. I tested some of the tools. We can
Nice.
discuss that a little bit later, but I want to know what the challenges that you see in these AI models.
Yeah, so we actually started our research with looking at bias in some of these models, because there's a lot of talk about that. And especially when you look at facial expression analysis, trying to understand emotions from the face, there's also a lot of criticism, but also bias in the models, because what data have you actually trained on? And we've taken several open source models and evaluated against each other on how they perform based on the input image, which can be like people of different ages, gender, background, quality of images, and look at both accuracy and fairness in identifying 7 different types of emotions. And we've identified, okay, some perform better than others, and of course that's super important for our research and the technologies that we use. So that's one aspect of it. Then there's also the cultural aspect, because there are differences in how we show emotions, how we talk about emotions in different cultures and in different languages. What anger is for me, it might be very different for you, both in the word itself, but also how we express it. So we are also working on research on cultural adaptation. How can we actually adapt to each culture? And it's not solved yet, especially as I live in Denmark, small country, not as much material written or audio material as you have in English and other languages. So it's quite a challenge to do something that really looks and sounds and behaves natural when you have a low resource language such as Danish.
I that remind me of a book I read about world culture. I think it's called The Culture Map from Ari Meyer. You've read that?
Yes,
Eh,
I've read it. Yeah, it's an
Yeah, for
amazing
me, it
book.
just blew my mind because I'm not originally from Denmark, but I've been here working here and living here, and it's seeing my home country in a scale compared to Denmark in many different levels of direct and indirect feedback is just so interesting. And so I can imagine the challenge you're facing by trying to adapt to different cultures, because there's so many elements at play that can dramatically change the output that you're giving to the customer, let's say, or to the user, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah, it depends so
can you
much. Yeah.
elaborate a little bit on how you're steering the research to see, or how you're like looking into cultural aspects, or it's also language? How you're doing that for the app?
Yeah, it's both. So, on the cultural aspects, we're basically collaborating with coaches and psychologists from that specific country or that has expertise in differences in cultures. And then on the model side, we are doing research on creating own models for Danish. We have a project coming up with a large research institute here in Denmark to collect data in Danish, audio and video, and generate specific models for that. That means that it should be able to understand what hygge means. Let's see. That's the ultimate test, and also if it can say some very difficult Danish words in the end. Yeah. So we have several projects ongoing, both on like the content, the cultural adaptation, but also the models themselves, that they understand the meaning of things. So work in progress, not a solved thing, and it's an exciting area. I think it's like, for me individually, it's like super exciting to work on this project as I learn more and more about the world and about human behavior, about the diversity, and also the brain, like how do we operate and interact with each other.
And you use artificial intelligence, isn't it? You built the app and everything. And what is difference like for you, like the traditional AI models and applications and the artificial social intelligence that you are building?
Yeah, so the differences I see it between artificial intelligence and social aware artificial intelligence is that we are taking into account the social interactions components when we generate output from the models. Basically, taking input from facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, eye gaze, things that we look at when we interact as people. But the models that are available today, if you take ChatGPT or some of the other tools, they don't have, even the old chatbots, they don't have the information about the body language, the interaction that we see as humans here, right? So as I'm talking, I can see you nodding, and like all of that gives me information back, and that loop is not there when you only have like a text based infrastructure and model, right? So what we're doing, we're basically adding these layers of social context to it and learning it, prompting it to actually go understand social context and then apply that in different verticals.
It's really cool. It's really interesting. And how, like, did do you have a research team in the company, or you outsource that research to different universities across the Denmark, for example, or how does that work?
We have our chief scientific officer, who is a professor both at DTU and Copenhagen University. And she spends most of her time in the research and only partly in the company, if you look at hours in a week. And then we have some of us in the team are contributing to the research projects, and we have master students at different universities that work on this area. We also got recently a grant from the Danish Life Science Cluster to continue our research and apply our technology for training parents of children with emotional issues, training them with our role plays to how to communicate better with their children. That's very, very interesting, and that both advances our research but also puts a nice vertical in production with, I believe, huge impact.
I Yeah, I think you wanted to say something, Matthias.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really interesting how you're using with the parents, like, and what are the other scenarios that you can apply your apps and your technology?
It could also be in healthcare. for caregivers or healthcare personnel on how to interact with patients, improving the level of satisfaction maybe from patients, but also reducing stress. Then in sales meetings, that's such an obvious use case, I think, for this kind of technology, to use it for feedback and training for sales meetings and customer service. So we have some projects coming up in that area. It can also be used internally for training on different leadership styles. So if an organization wants to um, talk about, okay, we want to implement the aspects of conscious leadership in our company, like what does that mean and how do we practice, similar to other initiatives in corporates, like a diversity and inclusion, how do we actually talk with people, and how can we train on that without experiencing and failing. So different application in this area. And in the future, because of my love for robots as well, hopefully we can put our technology also on physical robots.
That's really nice. And is it relatedly your first like project or your first app, or is it? And what is your plans? Do you have plans to expand to other apps and other applications? Or
Yeah, Relatedly is our first app from Interhuman AI, and we plan to create different vertical apps for our customers. One will be the training of parents for together with the Region Wholesale, and then we'll have other ones for coaching, for sales. The idea is to also provide a platform that companies can use to create their own role plays, and then we can either distribute under white label or create a specific app for them, but also we'll have an API, of course, so it integrates nicely with the other learning platforms. So that's the direction that we're going, and be available both for corporates and individuals if they want to create something themselves.
How? Yeah, I just wanted to ask,
yeah.
did you use an open source model and you build on top of that, or how did you came up with this model and how you're training them to have this, you know, very human perception, right? Or at least try to mimic the understanding of human reactions. And so I'm just curious what kind of technology you used.
Yeah, so it's very much based on the research from our scientific officer and all the years that she spent in looking at models and combining models to understand social interaction and also understand emotions from video and audio, especially for therapeutic setups. That was the initial line of research. So we're basically commercializing that component, her research, and on top of that, creating the infrastructure necessary to run role plays and creation of role plays. I think that if you put, for example, a role play instruction, something in GPT, ChatGPT, then you will soon run into issues in terms of both the feedback it gives, but also the knowledge that it has. So we've created our own way of structuring role play. So more is revealed over time as you interact with it, in a similar way as more is revealed about each of us here as we interact with each other. I don't have a profile of each of you, what kind of personality type, how do you interact before starting a discussion. That is revealed over time. And that's a huge difference from, ChatGPT or some of the others where you just have, okay, now do a simple role play. This is taking into account so many parameters in order to make it as realistic as possible and give you the necessary feedback to prepare you for real world.
Can I ask you something? I don't know if you can answer that or not, but how is the EU AI Act like impacting your apps and all your company? Like,
Yeah, it's a interesting development, and I must say I am happy that I come with a background from pharma and medtech because I've been exposed to a lot of regulations in those environments. So I feel much better prepared with the EU AI Act, where some of the guidelines go in the direction of almost documenting it as a medical device. Like you need a quality management system, you need to provide documentation, what data have you used, how are you testing all the models, and a lot of documentation that many startups are not used to, are not prepared for. So I think in terms of my team, I think we're better prepared for it and we know what comes. We've already talked with a notified body about our solution and what can we say, what can we not say, and all of these things, and how we can make ourselves ready for the AI Act. And the other good thing is that we have this connection with research environment. So there are a lot of things we can look research into, innovate there, and then consider how do we actually bring this into commercialization. That's the step forward, rather than saying, okay, we're a single startup now, we gotta innovate and comply with the EUA Act at the same time. So we have some advantages there. I think in general it's a controversial one, and I'm looking forward to following also the also updates and the appendix that will come from the AI Act. As it happens with other regulation, is like a lot of exclusion that comes afterwards, like different edits. Yes, no, this actually is kind of yes, but this one is no, very specific use cases. And I'm super interested in those as well. And then I think we are very careful in how we communicate about our product and what we can and what we cannot do. Be super transparent that you're talking with an AI, that things are generated, and have people consent with the data that we record, which is not much, to be honest. Even though we look at facial expressions and tone of voice, we do not record any video or audio. All of that data is not stored, is processed real time, and we only store the text version, the transcripts.
Actually, I downloaded the app. No, sorry.
Yeah, what was your experience with the app?
It was really nice, actually. I like it that the videos are short, like the interaction are like small, and then you kind of train. I didn't win much, but I was really interested in how we're planning to expand like the app and so sorry.
What, the question is how we plan to
Yeah,
expand,
yeah.
or yeah. So currently, we have a limited number of courses in the app and exercises, but we expand the library as we go further, as we develop more with other organizations and institutions. And we also have a partnership program with coaches and psychologists where we develop content together that is relevant for them, the theories that they follow, and the clients that they have. And that will make our library much bigger. We are planning an update of the app as well, where we'll have a bit more content, as well as content that will come up soon. So you'll be able to see what is coming up soon and click on it and be notified when that is updated. So yeah, we love feedback. So if you tried it and have some ideas on what you would like to train on, let us know.
And I like that you have a lot of different like negotiation courses, like courses divided in different. And that was actually what makes me like curious about it. Like that's why I downloaded it. Of course, we were gonna talk to you too, but uh, I was actually looking for an app that I could train some of my skills in communication. And then
Mhm.
I saw like I talked to Daniel about it. Like I said, really, Paula has an app about it. So I downloaded and I tested a little
Nice.
bit. It was really interesting. I hope I can test more and then use more the app.
Awesome. Good to hear. Did you get anything from the first interactions?
Yeah, yeah, I think I need to interact a little bit more, but I like it that there was small sessions, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then you can easily like do it like in a I don't know if I have a break in my lunch time, then I can just do it a little bit. So
Yes.
that's really
Yeah,
nice.
small micro learning. That's the thing these days, right?
Is
Yeah,
to is to align with the the current attention span shorten from people.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Gotta compete with TikTok,
yeah,
so the bar is quite
exactly.
high.
Talking about AI transforming the future of coaching, like in terms of personalization, accessibility, how do you see that? Because I guess that's a big part of what you're doing, right? In a certain way.
Yeah, AI in coaching is something that it's so obvious that AI can have a huge impact there. The challenge is to to make it work in the same way that coaching with humans works. So I think it's very good in letting people become more self-aware and on the surface kind of understand what coaching can bring for them, and then practice some of the tools, practice some of the new habits forming tools, and so on, discover themselves. But I don't think it will completely replace human coaching. I think the future is somewhere a combination of both, where, yeah, you can do some self discovery with the app, but it's actually you go then to a human coach, you have that interaction, and you can focus on the things that matter most, that, I mean, use the time more effectively then. And then you can go home, and based on what you discussed, you can practice those things. Okay, so I need to be better at communicating and not using filler words or whatever, so I can do this public talk, this TEDx talk. That's my dream, and that's why I have a coach now. Well, then you can go home and practice that, right? And you get feedback on different aspects, and that feedback, it's up to you then to, do you want to share with a coach or not? But the idea is more that you can actually practice. People say like, okay, practice in the mirror, or they practice with their spouse, but it's not really the same. The mirror doesn't respond back, the spouse might be bored or be too nice. So here you have a bit more interactive, objective avatar that can respond to you and prepare you for things. So I think it's super interesting what's happening now in AI coaching, and we're seeing a lot of solutions in that area right now with different theories, because if you look at coaching or therapy and so on, there are different types, and that's super interesting. And I think it will help people in the world discover more of themselves through it. More people will have access to coaching than before, because it does, you don't need to pay anything, a lot of them are free. Our solution is free to try out, so that can also bring people to this world. And I mean, we've talked with some of the coaches that were not part of our development but have tested the app afterwards, and they could recognize some of the questions that the our little AI coach asks, and they could see like, oh, this is exactly the right approach, this is exactly how I would put it as well. So it's good to get that feedback, that it kind of goes according to standards and
It validates, right?
expectations, and that we can yeah, and we can bring this to many more people. So it's exciting to have
So
this.
needed right now in the age of social media and crazy algorithms that are like just really not respecting, or at least whatever is gets promoted is usually like controversial things that can really impact your mental health, right? So it's so much needed to give more access to this kind of stuff. So I thought I think it's a really interesting product.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is AI for good, right? How can AI help us rather than taking that perspective that it's got to suddenly go in the Terminator and yeah, it's yeah, we are not there. And that's definitely not what we're working on. We're working on how can we use technology for good and help people.
Do you mentioned that you see that at least in the near future, which is we kind of like can assume because it's hard to predict where things go and things happen so fast. But are you considering a way of, because you mentioned that you see that there's going to be a collaboration between AI and humans, right? It's not like that AI will take over like coaching. So, are you already working on something where this app can transition into a sidekick for a coach, uh, or yeah, are you looking into that as well, or?
Yes. Yeah, we are because yeah, that's how we see the future, that humans and AI, they will work together, whether it's coaches or professionals or corporates that will use it. And so we can leverage a lot of generative AI technologies to actually make the work easier, including, for example, generation of content and interactions, where we can create on the fly different exercises, different role plays based on some instructions from the coach. And then they can edit that. It's much easier. So it does a lot of the work, the structuring for them. And then they can customize it. So it's like giving a task that would take, like, I don't know, a week, and then suddenly you can do it in a few minutes and deploy it. So, yep, that's the future.
You mentioned that for now the app is for free, so I downloaded
Mhm.
and just enter, and then I didn't pay anything. And do you have any plans to? Is it continue to be free, or what is your plans to expand the company? Do you sell for other companies, like as I mentioned, some programs and stuff?
Yeah, our main focus is B2B, so selling to companies. And so there will always be a version that is free of the app, but with some limitations because, there's also the AI costs whenever we put something in production. What we want is to make this available for everyone, but for reasonable costs, right? So for individuals and companies, I think working in the B2C market is quite difficult these days. And working more with corporates, we could have a larger impact. If we suddenly deploy a coach to a company with 5,000 employees and they get access to it, that would be much more impactful than putting ads on Facebook and getting some of them. So we see a much better opportunity there in terms of impact and also on the business side.
And I have seen, changing a bit the topic, but I have seen that you were building your own humanoid robot. Can you explain a little bit how did you start it, and what is your plan with it?
Yes, I started on the project some years ago, maybe 5 years ago or so, when I was at Lundbeck and in the corporate world and talking a lot with other medical doctors on brain health. I was contributing to clinical trials on depression, schizophrenia, dementia, and so on. I was super curious about the human brain and what we don't know, and the human body. So at the same time, I got interested as well in hardware. I'm a software engineer, always have been building things for the screen. And I got my hands some 5 6 years ago on an Arduino and then a Raspberry Pi, and I started building things, and it was just so fascinating to see that I can build things in like that move in the physical space, not only on a screen. And I love that. The kind of projects that I built evolved over time. So it went from simple automation projects with switches and so on to more complex ones. I did Mixomator 9000. That was a drinks mixer. It could take as input 8 different liquids, and via an app you could order, and it will just pour. It will have some little pumps that will pour the cocktail for you. That was an interesting project because again things were moving, so I thought, okay, how can I build something more fun, bigger, more ambitious? So I decided to work on a humanoid robot that will be the size of a normal human body, and at the same time work on the brain, like really understand human anatomy, the brain, and how would it interact with the world. So I went into a rabbit hole, I guess, like exploring this and obsessing about different parts, different sensors, different motors that I could use. This was at a time where Elon Musk did not announce the robot that he's building now. It was prior to that. At that time, it was maybe only Boston Dynamics and just a few that were really making some interesting advancements in humanoid robots, as well as a nice community of robot hobbyists on YouTube. So we were kind of viewing each other's videos and giving comments and like helping each other. So I have a channel. It's still up, the videos. I haven't posted in a while, but paulaslab.com, I posted the videos of like how I created the robot. I have 2 printers here in my lab and a lot of components because you never know what components, what sensors you need. So it started as a hobby project, and it still is. I worked on it, I think, for 2 years while I was in the corporate world and then as CTO. And the idea was just to explore human body, the brain, human interaction. How is it to move objects in the physical world? Better understand that and explore the mechanism of everything. The AI side is as well. Like this was prior to GPT, and I was exploring. I created my own chat bot so I could talk with a robot, and that's in Rasa NLU. So that's a platform for like fine tuning a small model on some specific direction that you want, like old school stuff now. It was really fun, and I could talk with it without too many problems. And the things changed, I guess, when I went full in as a startup founder. There's very little time, and so the project has been a bit on pause, but I still love robots, and I do have a robot pet. I did not build it, but it's one of these cute little robots that goes around and like just makes noises, and I love it. That's my robot dog, so to say. And I do hope that my passion for understanding the human brain and using the tools that we have available, whether it's AI or not, is like integrating that with physical objects that move with robots, providing that social intelligence for them. I hope that that will converge at some point.
Oh, that's pretty much nice. That's really nice. And I saw that you created the arm based on the human arm. Then it didn't work out, so
Yes.
you needed to rebuild the whole arm. So what were the
Yes.
challenges that you faced, like building this robot? Because for me, it's like an amazing project. You know, I was fascinated how like far you went. You know, in the project. So it was really nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of experimentation and failure and learning from that. It's also watching a lot of videos, reading, getting inspired, and then trying to build things. The first version of the arm, yeah, it was made of plastic, printed here on my 3D printer, so it didn't have much structure and couldn't hold too much without breaking. So yeah, lesson learned. Gotta put something stronger there than plastic. And so the second version had a lot more metal in it, more solid structures. It did get heavy, so that's the point where I realized I should have used aluminum instead of steel. But you learn by doing, and then you know for the next time. I must say that this being a hobby, I really enjoy compared to my usual work to not plan too much, like leave a lot of room for experimentation. And so I work on things, see what works, what components are missing, improvise a lot with what I have available, and then learn from it. I think my project could have gone further have I planned more in advance, but that was reducing a bit of the fun because I wanted to do something new, explore. I didn't just want to copy a project on the internet that already had all the components and everything ready. It was my own journey. And so a lot of learnings from that, and failures and experimenting and having
That's
fun.
awesome. Quite an interesting pet project, let's say. We're
Yeah.
reaching the end of the show, but we want to ask you one last question in regards to looking into the future. So, what advice would you give to those who want to start using AI today, whether to work or for personal uh, reasons, or if they want to create a startup using AI?
Mhm. I think there's no reason why not to use AI. So just getting started with, like for your workplace, there's so many things that you can already do with the tools available. There's so much experimentation. It's easier than ever to build apps, build solutions. You have AI tools that help you write code, build a marketing plan, build websites. It's easier than ever. You want a logo, you have an AI tool for that. So it's there's no reason why not to use it. Especially if you have already some expertise, you know how to guide it. That's great. And in the future, I think we'll see more agents. That's already happening. I'm curious to try some myself as well. That can provide this chain of thought of like, okay, you need this app. Okay, so first we do this. First you need a title. First you need to design the app. You're gonna market it. You're gonna need this budget and plan everything for you and deploy. I would love to experiment with that. I think that will be the future. But no matter what, uh, one should experiment with it. Whether you want to use more for yourself, for your work, or in your startup, experiment with it and build on top of it. The like, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. Uh, Other people will use AI, so if you're not, you will kind of be left behind, I would say. Of course it should be like relevant to you, right? What you use it for. So having some kind of project idea and experimenting with it, that's super fun.
Nice, thank you. I just want to ask you, like, is there any other question? I know that we are short in on time, but I just want to ask you if is there any questions that we didn't did that you want to explore or anything? Or
Yeah, maybe a continuation of like people that want to create an AI startup, because there's more. competition now and much easier to build things. Things are moving faster and there's a lot more pressure. More people are building startups, companies have ideas, competition is bigger, venture capital money is more difficult to get. So there's a lot of stress associated with it. I would like to say that it's always fun and exciting, but the truth is it can also be difficult and you have ups and downs. At least I do. So mental health of mental health of the founder is super important. I think taking care of yourself as a human before your business is super important. You need to work on yourself in order to work on the business, and taking time to relax, taking sleeping and exercising, all these things that are not new, not AI generated. People have known about these tricks for a long time. Sleep, exercise, eat healthy, and you'll get much further. And of course, I have my own practices on that. So meditating early in the morning sets me up for a good day, and doing breathing exercises as well. You can control your breathing, and that will change how you feel. And I also have a podcast on founders' mental health, where I try to get other good tips from founders that have been through this journey, and they're a bit further than I am. So maybe check that out as well.
We're going to put all your links in the show notes. But thank you so much
Awesome.
for joining us here today. And where could people find you online?
Thanks for having me. People can find me on LinkedIn, Paula Petcu, and they can check my videos of the robot at Paula's lab. Can check out our website, the company Interhuman AI, and the app is called Relately. You can find it in Apple and Google stores, as well as on the web.
Awesome. That was great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It's free and helps us a lot. This way, it can help us also reach new listeners. Oh, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to stay up to date on our latest episodes. If you have any questions for us, reach out to us at hello@humanaixp.com or connect with us on Instagram. Thanks for listening. See you next week.